I want to tell you about the second night, because the first night is the part that always makes people say I was imagining things. So let's start there instead. It's 2:47 in the morning, and I am standing in a hallway that should not exist, holding a room key that no longer opens my door. And somewhere behind me, at the far end of the corridor, a door that was locked an hour ago is standing open 2 inches, breathing cold air into the hall like the building itself is exhaling. I didn't scream. I want you to know that. Because I think about it a lot, I didn't scream. I just stood there and counted the doors. Because counting the doors was the only thing that still made sense. There were 14. There had always been 12. My name is Nora Vance, and 3 days before that hallway, I was just a woman driving north on a coastal highway with a suitcase, a resume folder, and a very specific kind of exhaustion that only comes from losing a job you were good at. 11 years at the same architecture firm, gone in a restructuring meeting that lasted 4 minutes. So when an old colleague offered me a second interview at a small firm 200 miles up the coast, I took it as a sign, packed my car, and told myself this trip was the start of something, not the end of something. The plan was simple. Drive up Thursday, interview Friday morning, stay 2 nights at a hotel called the Aldermere, then decide what my life looked like from there. I found the Aldermere online, tucked into the hills above a small harbor town, the kind of place where the fog rolls in before the streetlights turn on. The photos showed a restored 1920s building, dark wood, brass fixtures, the kind of quiet elegance that doesn't need to advertise itself. The reviews were strange in a way I didn't clock at the time. A few 5-star reviews calling it peaceful, restorative, unforgettable. A few 1-star reviews that just said, in different words, we left early. I remember thinking that was probably just a difficult guest or two, the kind every hotel collects. And if you've ever searched for a hotel horror story online expecting something obvious, something with a warning sign flashing right there in the reviews, I can tell you now it's never that obvious. It's never obvious until you're already inside. If you're the kind of person who likes a story that gets quieter instead of louder the longer it goes, go ahead and subscribe to Eerie Atmos X now, because you're going to want to be here for the rest of this one. I arrived a little after 7 in the evening, the sky doing that bruised purple thing it does right before full dark, and the Aldermere looked exactly like its photos. Maybe better, ivy climbing one side of the stone facade, warm yellow light in the lobby windows. The man at the front desk introduced himself as Elliot, mid-50s cardigan, reading glasses pushed up into gray hair, the kind of calm, unhurried presence that makes you exhale a little without realizing you were holding your breath. He handed me a brass key, actual metal, not a card, room 312, 3rd floor, and told me breakfast started at 7. He said one more thing, almost as an afterthought, that I didn't think about again until much later. He said the hotel settles a bit at night. Don't mind the sounds, I laughed, said something about old buildings always creaking, and he smiled in a way that didn't quite reach his eyes. And if you're the kind of person who's ever ignored a small warning because you were tired and just wanted to lie down, you already know exactly where this is going. The room itself was beautiful. High ceilings, a window seat looking out over dark pines, a brass bed frame that matched the key. I unpacked, showered, ordered nothing because there was no room service menu, and fell asleep around 10 with the window cracked so I could hear the wind. I woke up once, maybe around 1 in the morning, to the sound of ice, not a machine humming, just ice. The specific clatter of cubes dropping into a bucket close by, like someone was standing right outside my door filling one. I checked through the peephole. Empty hallway, warm sconce lighting, nothing. I told myself it was pipes, went back to sleep, and in the morning I almost forgot about it entirely, because the interview went well, better than well. And I came back to the hotel around 6 in the evening, feeling something I hadn't felt in months, which was hope. That's the part nobody warns you about in a hotel horror story, that the good day always comes first, the relief always comes first. So you're not braced for what comes after it. On my way back to the hotel that evening, I stopped at a small diner just off the coastal road, mostly because I wanted to celebrate the interview with something other than a granola bar in my car. The waitress, an older woman with tired eyes and a name tag that said Marge, asked where I was staying, and when I told her the Aldermere, her pen stopped moving over her order pad for just a second too long. She recovered fast, smiled, said it was a beautiful old building. But she also said something strange as she walked away, almost under her breath. She said, "Just keep track of which floor you're on, honey," and left before I could ask her what she meant. I told myself she was just a small-town woman with small-town superstitions about an old building. The way people talk about creaky houses and haunted barns without really meaning it. And I finished my dinner and drove the rest of the way up the hill, feeling lighter than I had in months. The lobby was warm and gold when I walked back in around 9, and Elliot was gone from behind the desk, replaced by a young woman I hadn't seen before. And that alone didn't worry me. Hotels rotate staff. People go home at the end of a shift, and I almost walked straight past the fireplace without noticing the portrait at all. Almost. The lobby felt different, though I couldn't say how at first, until I realized the portrait above the fireplace had changed. The first night it had been a woman in a blue dress, hand resting on a chair. Now it was a man in a dark coat, standing in almost the same pose, same chair, different figure entirely. I asked the young woman at the desk, not Elliot, someone new, if the painting had been swapped out, and she looked at me with polite confusion and said there was only ever one painting, and it had always been the man. I let it go. People misremember things, I told myself. I'd had one glass of wine at the interview dinner and a long drive before that, so I let it go and went up to my room, except my brass key didn't turn in the lock of 312. I tried 3 times before a passing housekeeper told me, kindly, that I was in 214. Not 312, and when I said no, I checked in yesterday. She checked her cart list and said 214 had my name on it, and that's the only Vance on the 3rd floor tonight. I went downstairs and Elliot wasn't at the desk. Hadn't been all day, according to the young woman, who told me the only front desk staff on rotation this week were her and a man named Peter. I described Elliot exactly. Cardigan, reading glasses, the calm voice, and she said that sounded like nobody she'd worked with. Not in the 2 years she'd been there. This is where I want to be honest with you, because I think honesty matters more than making myself sound braver than I was. I didn't leave. I know how that sounds. I know every viewer watching this is yelling at their screen right now. Leave, just leave. And I understand that, but you have to understand what it's like to be exhausted, jobless until yesterday, 4 hours from home, and being told by 2 calm, ordinary-looking employees that you're simply misremembering things, because the alternative that something was actually wrong felt so much bigger than I was ready to hold. So I went up to 214 instead, and it looked exactly like 312 had, same window seat, same brass bed, and I told myself the hotel probably just moved my things while I was out. Some mix-up with the room type, nothing sinister, and I almost believed it until I noticed the guestbook. There was a leather guestbook on the writing desk, the kind older hotels keep for guests to leave a note about their stay, and I flipped through it out of boredom more than suspicion. Most entries were what you'd expect. Lovely stay, wonderful staff, will return. Then I found a page dated 11 years earlier, and the handwriting stopped me cold, because it was mine. Not similar to mine. The same slightly slanted N, the same way I cross my 7s. A habit from an old drafting class that no one else in my family shares. The entry said, simply, "Third night is the only night that matters. Don't let them move your room." Before I even reached that page, though, something else happened that I need to tell you about first, because it's the part that made the guestbook feel less like a coincidence and more like a warning. While I was sitting in the window seat flipping through it, there was a soft knock at my open door, and an elderly woman in a quilted robe stood in the hallway, apologizing for the hour, asking if I had any spare ice. Since the machine on her floor wasn't working, I told her I didn't have any, but I asked if she was enjoying her stay just to make conversation, and her expression did something I still can't fully describe, a kind of flicker, like a held breath, before she said, quietly, "This is my third time here this week." I asked what she meant, and she looked past me into the room for a moment, at the guestbook open on the desk, and said, "They let you think it's Thursday, but some of us have been here a lot longer than that." And then she smiled, thanked me anyway, and walked off down the hall in the wrong direction, toward the end where I would later find that open door breathing cold air. I didn't sleep well after that, obviously, and when I mentioned her to the young woman at the front desk the next time I passed by, she checked her guest list twice and told me there was no elderly woman registered on the third floor. That in fact, there was no one else registered on the third floor at all except me. I hadn't been to this town in my life before that week I checked. I actually pulled out my phone and searched old emails, old photos, anything, and there was nothing. No record I'd ever set foot near this coastline before Thursday. I told myself it was a coincidence of handwriting, that lots of people cross their sevens that way, and I put the guestbook down and told myself I would just leave in the morning. I didn't need to stay for a third night. I'd gotten what I came for. The interview was done. That decision, the leaving, is where the night should have ended for me, calm, resolved. A story I'd tell later as a funny travel anecdote. Before any of that, I called my sister, Paige, mostly just to hear a voice from home and steady myself before trying to sleep. I told her about the room mix-up and the painting, keeping my tone light, making it sound like an amusing little mystery rather than what it actually felt like. And she laughed and said hotels are weird at night, and told me to get some sleep, and asked, almost as an aside, whether I'd found the bar on the second floor yet, because she'd read about it in one of the reviews. I told her the Aldermere didn't have a bar, and she went quiet for a second, then said, "Huh? Must have been a different place," and changed the subject to ask about the interview, and I let it go, the way I'd let so many small wrong details go that night, because focusing on any one of them for too long felt like standing too close to the edge of something. We hung up around 11:30, instead, around midnight. The knocking started. 3 knocks, a pause exactly 4 seconds long. Then 2 more knocks, always in that pattern. Always from the door, never from the walls. I know it was 4 seconds because I counted it out loud the third time it happened, my voice shaking in a room that suddenly felt much colder than it had an hour before. I looked through the peephole and saw nothing, an empty hallway lit warm and gold. And yet the knocking came again while I was looking, as if whoever was doing it knew exactly when I'd stopped watching. I did the only thing that felt like it made sense. I called the front desk. The young woman answered, and when I described the knocking, she went quiet for a second too long before saying, very carefully, that no one else was on that floor tonight, that I was the only guest checked into the third floor. I asked her to send someone up. She said Peter was on his rounds and would swing by, and I sat on the edge of that brass bed for 11 minutes, watching the door until someone finally knocked. 3 knocks, the same rhythm. And when I opened it, there was no Peter, no housekeeper, nothing, just the hallway, and at the far end, a door I did not remember being there before, standing open 2 inches, cold air sliding out of it into the corridor like breath. That's the moment I told you about at the very beginning. Me standing there counting doors, 14, instead of 12, holding a key that didn't fit anything anymore. I want you to sit with that feeling for a second. The way the floor of your own certainty can just give out beneath you, because that's what a real hotel horror story does to you. It doesn't show you a monster. It shows you that the walls you trusted were never as fixed as you thought. I didn't walk toward that open door. I want to be clear about that, because some version of me in a movie would have, and I am not that person. I turned and I ran for the stairwell instead. And the stairwell was where the night became something I still don't fully have language for. The stairs went down the way they should, one flight to the lobby. Except when I reached the door marked lobby and pushed through it, I wasn't in the lobby. I was on a landing with a door marked lobby again, one more flight below me, and pines pressed against a small window that shouldn't have existed on an interior stairwell at all. I tried it again, telling myself I'd simply lost count of the flights in the dark, and pushed through that second door marked lobby, and found a third landing waiting for me instead. The air noticeably colder than the one above it, the wallpaper here peeling in long strips, and somewhere below me, faint but unmistakable, the sound of a piano playing a few slow notes and then stopping, over and over like a record skipping on the same 4 bars. I have never in my life wanted so badly to simply be wrong about what I was hearing. I stood there for a long moment, my hand on the railing, and made a decision I still think about, which is that I stopped trying to reach the lobby and instead tried the door right in front of me, the one on that landing, and it opened onto a hallway that looked like the 3rd floor, except older, the wallpaper faded and yellowed, sconces with real flame instead of bulbs, and at the far end, a man in a cardigan and reading glasses turning to look at me. Elliot. He didn't look surprised to see me. He looked, if anything, relieved. The way you look when someone finally arrives at a meeting you'd been dreading having alone. He said my name before I said his. He said, "You found the guest book, didn't you?" I told him I didn't understand any of this, and he said something I have turned over in my mind every single day since. He said the hotel doesn't take you, it invites you, and some people write themselves an invitation years before they ever accept it, and the only thing that matters now is which night you decide to leave on, because the door only opens outward on the 3rd. I asked him what would happen if I stayed for that 3rd night. He didn't answer that, he just looked past me, down the hallway, toward wherever it kept going, and said very quietly that some guests do stay, and they're not unhappy about it, which was somehow worse than if he'd said they were. I ran. I don't remember every turn I took. I remember a door that led to a stairwell that finally matched what a stairwell should be. Concrete, fire exit signage, cold air smelling like rain instead of pine and dust. And I came out into the parking lot at what must have been close to 4 in the morning. My car exactly where I'd left it. Keys somehow already in my hand, though I don't remember taking them from my bag. I looked back at the hotel once from the driver's seat, engine running, hands shaking too hard to shift into reverse right away. It looked dark, not closed for the night dark, abandoned dark, windows boarded on the upper floors, ivy grown wild and dead brown over stone that looked decades older than it had at 7 o'clock the evening I checked in. For 1 second, just one, in the reflection off my rearview mirror rather than through the windshield itself, the hotel looked lit again, warm gold light in every window, a figure in a cardigan standing at the glass front door with one hand raised, not waving exactly, just held up, still, like he was marking the moment I left rather than saying goodbye to it. About 20 minutes down the hill, I passed the diner where Marge worked, dark and closed at that hour. Only the neon open sign still glowing faintly in the window, even though the parking lot was empty. And for reasons I couldn't explain then, and still can't now, I slowed down just enough to see a single figure sitting alone at the counter inside. unmoving, silhouetted against that dim neon glow. And I did not stop to find out who it was. I drove until the sun came up and didn't stop until I was 3 states away from that coastline. I never went back for a second interview. I never called the firm. I let that opportunity dissolve without explanation because I could not make myself dial a number with that town's area code again. About a month after I got home, once my hands had stopped shaking every time I thought about it, I let myself do one search, just one, for the history of the Aldermere. And what I found didn't explain anything so much as it deepened everything. A local historical society's archive page mentioned the building had operated under 3 different names since the 1920s, closing and reopening after what the site vaguely called a series of unfortunate incidents in the 1960s. And one grainy scanned newspaper clipping from that decade referenced a guest who had checked in for what the article called an extended stay and was never confirmed to have checked out, though hotel records at the time listed her room as vacated the following week in perfectly ordinary handwriting. There was no name given, no photograph, just that one dry paragraph buried on page 6 under a story about a fishing quota, and I read it maybe 30 times before I made myself close the laptop and not open that archive page again. I've told this story to exactly 2 people in my life before tonight, and both of them gently suggested I'd been overtired, maybe dealing with the stress of the layoff in some strange dissociative way, and I let them believe that because it was easier than making them understand what it felt like to count 14 doors where there had only ever been 12. Here's the part I haven't told anyone, not even those 2 people. And it's the reason I'm finally telling this story out loud, instead of keeping it folded up somewhere in the back of my chest. About 4 months ago, an urban exploration channel posted a video walking through an abandoned hotel on that same stretch of coastline, cataloging the dust and the collapsed ceilings and the water-stained wallpaper, the kind of quiet room footage that channel is known for. And near the end of the video, the explorer flips through a swollen, moldy leather guestbook left open on a writing desk, camera lingering on it just long enough for viewers to read a few entries. And I paused that frame so many times my thumb went numb on the trackpad, because near the bottom of a page dated 3 weeks from today, in handwriting with a slightly slanted N and 7s crossed the exact way I've crossed mine since a drafting class over a decade ago, it says 3rd night is the only night that matters. Don't let them move your room. I haven't booked anything. I haven't gone anywhere near that coastline. I did, though, in a moment of weakness I'm not proud of, search for Marge's Diner one more time just to see if it still existed, and the listing that came up showed it permanently closed, with a single review from 2 years ago that simply said the food was fine. But ask your waitress about the hotel on the hill only if you're ready for the answer. And yet I keep thinking about what Eliot said, that some people write themselves an invitation years before they ever accept it. And I keep wondering whether writing that sentence down, once 11 years before I ever set foot in that lobby, was the moment the invitation was actually sent, or whether some part of me hasn't decided yet whether to accept it. I still have 3 weeks, so I want to ask you something, because I think you'll understand this better than anyone else I could ask. If you found your own handwriting in a place you'd never been, promising a night you haven't lived yet, would you go looking for the door it was talking about? Or would you do everything you could to make sure that date simply passed you by like any other Tuesday? Tell me what you would do, because I genuinely don't know anymore. And if this kind of quiet, slow-building dread is the kind of hotel horror story that stays with you after the screen goes dark, share it with someone who'd rather lie awake, wondering than sleep soundly, not knowing, because I think that's the only kind of company that makes sense for a story like this one. 3 weeks from now, if I don't post again, I'd rather you assume I finally worked up the courage to stay away than assume anything else.